Sunlight spills through the cafe door. Mic goes live like it's done before. 9 years deep in these mountain towns, we brew the truth, not just sit around. I came for a visit and stayed for the view, but the soul of this place, it just pulls you through. Mornings in Finlandia, nights in Salento. Life don't move fast, but man, it's full tempo. This ain't a pitch, it's real as it gets. From lost bags to love and bureaucratic regrets. No script here, just the sound of real lives told live every week under Colombian skies. It's coffee time lived from the heart of Quindío, where the screen fades out and the real stories flow from expats who landed and locals who guide. We laugh, we vent, we cry, we ride. It's not about views, it's about the vibe. Just raw conversation, live and alive.
Give it up for the studio band.
Got folks tuning in from every time zone, asking what's it like to make this place your own. It's mango trees, it's rent debates, it's finding peace past the clickbait gates. Some days we talk visas, some days we just breathe and sip dark roast while the valley grieves through mudslides, marches, markets, and mess. We show up with stories, no more, no less. It's coffee time lived, not just a name on a screen. It's 9 years of mornings and everything between. No hype, just heart and a decent brew. A place for the honest, the warm, the true. Not selling dreams, just sharing the ride from right here in Quindío live. And if you've ever felt a little lost or wide awake at dawn, this show was made for you to lean on. We're not tourists here, we belong, we build in mountain towns where the air stands still. So bring your mug, your doubts, your days. We'll light 'em up in soft cafe rays. It's not a podcast, it's a porch-like glow. It's home and a headline, a yes and a no. It's coffee time live. Come as you are from my table in Colombia to wherever you are.
Good morning and welcome back to the channel, Grand Colombia, and welcome to another Coffee Time Live. I see we've got a bunch of people assembling. Pretty damn awesome. And for those that showed up for the Christmas special, thanks a lot. I actually watched it. I never watched these back, but I watched it back. Oh, did I say live here in Armenia, Colombia? I watched it back and I was a little frantic. You know, I spent so many years of my life trying to accomplish actually getting something published. And when I did, so I was just freaking out all over the place. And then I go on for a special, it just bled over. Turtle, good morning. How you doing? B. Nick. Buen dia. How are you, Mr. B. Nick? Yum, yum, yum. All right. Yeah, let me show you. Let me show you. Where is it? Where is it? Here it is. Check this out.
High in the end, there's clouds below. Exotic beans in a steady grind. Water hot, no rush, no show. Milk turns silk in careful time.
Thank you, Miss Becky. Thank you. Appreciate it. Gotta be loving it. Yeah, I toned it down. Not quite as foamy. Okay. Let's go over the itinerary first. So today, the greeting. Take a look at the chat. Beautiful setup. Thank you. And explain today's topics. That's where we're at right now. I'll quickly do the exchange rate and temperature that I always do, and the coffee clip, which I just played, a little out of order. I was requested to post up some information about a charity, so I will do that. And then we'll cover the news headlines. I've got, I think, 5 today, maybe even 6. I don't know. I had a few today. And then, not as a main topic, but I'm going to take maybe 7 or 8 minutes to talk about the plummeting of the exchange rate just in the last week and a half or so. Because as you can imagine, what's going on? What's going on? And so I'll explain what's going on. Hopefully that'll put your mind at ease. And then we'll go right into the main topic, 10 things that expats get wrong, or 10 mistakes people make in Colombia, or I think I actually had like 3 or 4 titles, all different. Okay, so there's that. Maybe I could put this up. See if I can leave that up there. I don't know. Can anybody read that? Or is it too... I guess if you're on the phone, there's no way. But a lot of people now are watching on TV. So that's pretty cool. All right. What's now? Oh, yeah. Here we go. So the exchange rate as of this morning, 37.16, kind of sucks. You know, we get our little cost of living raise this month. Well, mine is January 3rd. And it like gets totally washed away by the exchange rate. But got some news on it. It's about 74 degrees, and we're going to have a high of 77, 78 degrees. And we're probably going to get a fair amount of rain this afternoon, 3 o'clock, somewhere around there. Okay, and the charity, let's see, Operation Caribbean Reach. It's a veteran group that has funded this little boat there, if you can see it. And it's going to Guatemala, Panama, and it's got doctors on board, and they bring kids on, and they do various procedures that they can't afford otherwise. And Don, one of our Armenian expats, he left yesterday to go do this, or maybe the day before. And so he's doing that, and he asked me to post this up. And the address for that is givebutter.com/operation-caribbean-reach. So if anybody's interested in helping out, it can be financial, it can be whatever. Okay. Let's see, where are we? Bullfights. Yeah, that's next. Okay, so we're going to go right into the news topics, which is first headline: Heifers fights and falls, 16 injured in event prior to the Caucasia bullfights. Bullfights start today, and I'll talk about that in a bit. But the day before, yesterday, they apparently typically have an event where you get a lot of people that go out and the bulls kind of run around, and it's just like amateur bullfighting without the fighting part. So they duck and dodge and like that. And it kind of made the news. Let me show you where this is at. This is quite a bit north of Medellin. It's really about almost halfway between Medellin and Cartagena. It's kind of it's a pretty warm area. Not that that matters, but I'm just, I've been there, and I don't like too hot. But anyway, that's where it is. And there's a video clip. Now, this isn't about the coffee region, but this made all the news. Check it out. Okay, the bullfights there are from December 28th today to January 4th. And so they have bullfights. Now, the thing about bullfights, the closest, they used to have them here. There's a stadium here that they're actually, it fell into disrepair for years. And they're just now coming up with plans to recondition it. Thank you, Owen. Good morning. So they're going to recondition the bullfighting ring that's here in Armenia. There is a bullfighting ring active in Manizales. That's the closest one I know of. There's only a few left in Colombia. And they did pass a law banning bullfighting, but they gave them a window. So it was 3 years. I think they're on the last year. I'm not sure. They might have one more, but I think they're on the last year. So that one, that could very well be their last hurrah, but they decided to go out with a bang and make all the news headlines by getting a whole bunch of people trampled and stabbed. And yeah, it's great fun. Okay, this is Cartagena. I just thought it was kind of bizarre. Cartagena puts an end to animal abuse and replaces horse-drawn carriages with electric cars. Now, I will agree that some of the owners of these things, and not just in Cartagena, they will abuse their horses. And you abuse them by basically working them too hard. I grew up on the Double Diamond Ranch. That was my step-grandfather's place, and I didn't grow up on it, but I used to have to go during free time and work there occasionally, and he had 50, 55 horses at any given time, and he did various things with them. There'd be parades and stuff like that, but on a regular basis, they had horseback riding. So people would come out from the city, Rochester, New York. They would come out to the country. And it was usually like the universities for whatever it was they were studying. And that would be like a field trip. I remember it was mostly college students that we would see, or at least that's my memory of it. I don't know. I was 11 years old or something like that. And, but he was a fanatic about yeah, on any given day, the horses would not go up on the trail more than twice. And if they were busy and the right horses went up, and that was it, he would just shut everything down. He just would not. He would not work them hard at all. And even if they appeared to be kind of tired, he'd just pull them out of the line and nope, that's done. And I think most people that do those kind of things are that consistent about caring for their animals. They tend to be doing things like that because they love their animals. However, you have people that the only thing they care is how much money they can make, and they'll just keep going and going and grind these horses into the ground. But personally, I don't think the answer is to stop a number of hundreds of years of tradition and flavor, particularly since it's such a huge tourist town and it's all about that era. You go to the fort and things like that. I don't think it makes sense to take this away. Personally, I think it's a wonderful thing. I think what they should do is maybe make sure they're not getting abused. And it's not that hard to tell. You can tell. You can clearly tell if they're being worked to death, if they're not being fed properly, they're just not being cared for. And the thing is, you don't have that many people doing it. How hard is it to keep track of the people that are doing it day after day, week after week? I think it's silly to pull that off and replace with electric cars. They're probably going to be BYDs, so we can just ship money off to China. I mean, I find it offensive, but that's what they're doing. I don't know. What do you think? You think I'm crazy? I don't know. Okay, what else we got here? Crackdown on crime to protect the coffee region, halting the expansion of armed groups. Over 900 captured, 12 billion pesos in extortion prevented. Most of you have not been following. I did that Petro series on Rumble Premium. It was a 3-part series, and I got into a lot of detail about the groups and specifically things that are going on and why they're going on and why they've been expanding and why they will never be in the coffee region. And so if you're living here in the coffee region, calm down. You don't have to worry about it. If you look at the Rumble Premium thing, you'll see specifically why. But this is kind of an example. So if you did watch that and you see this kind of headline, you can say, okay, well, he told me that that's what's been going on. Well, they have been extremely active. Once, was it 2 years ago, they tried to move into Condillo and they were caught right away. And then they tried to move in shortly after and they caught right away. After that, after they saw what was going on, they put in more military and more national police into Condillo, specifically Condillo. Now, they also upped it in Risaralda and Caldas for Manizales and Pereira, but specifically Condillo because this activity is coming from the south. It's coming up out of Cauca, and this is it's the Andes, so you don't have a lot of roads going where you want to go, and this is like the route. And so if we don't want them in the coffee region, you got to kind of nip it at the bud. So think of it as a southern border is here in Condillo, and so they put on extra police, they put on extra military, and they have been kicking butt. I don't put the headlines up for it because one, they're kind of routine, and two, if you don't understand what's going on, you could, I might panic somebody. You're perfectly fine if you're here. And that's part of the reason you are and will be, because the coffee region is the crown jewel of Colombia. And so if there's ever dominoes falling, this will be the absolute last one. The entire military and national police would be surrounding us, but that's not going to happen. As a matter of fact, come this election, which is less than a year away, it's late summer uh, in 26, everything's going to change up anyway. And whoever gets elected, part of the mandate most likely will be to push this stuff back. Um, they should never have been let up to breathe. Unfortunately, the last couple years, they were under a pseudo peace plan, which was ridiculous. It was just, let's give you time to reconstitute and make more money. So anyway, they've been doing their job. They just it has slowed down because all they're doing is losing men and money by trying to come into the coffee region. Okay, Tommy, I've been on the horse-drawn carts. Some of the horses are too old, but yes, to replace them with electric cars is overboard. Yeah, this doesn't make sense. Do you guys hear that? Can you hear that? Damn motorcycle races out front. It'll go away in a minute, but it sounds like 4 or 5 motorcycles. For some reason, they want to take their exhaust off, and they're all rushing up loud. Can't even hear myself. Okay, it's gone. Did you guys hear that? It's over now. All right, what's next? Terminal, security control, high demand. Armenia's transportation terminal, the bus terminal, expects up to 700,000 passengers from now until January 4th. It will be a record. And I just talked to somebody who the day before, 2 days before Christmas, said that it was absolutely insane. It was just insanely busy. So I guess nobody heard that. So that's good. It was loud as hell for me. I got filters and things, so it's only supposed to be my voice that it hears, but you never know, especially when something's that loud. Okay, did the terminal. And if you live in the South, you might find this interesting. A new water tank is being planned. It'll be tank number 7, but this one will be upgraded, modern, larger. The water in the north is, you can drink out of the sink, out of the faucet, not out of the sink, but out of the faucet, not out of the toilet tank either, but you can drink out of the faucet. It's perfectly fine. The danger of water, most places in this world, is not so much the water itself, but the pipes that it goes through. And in the north, it's all relatively new. They're always on top of it because there's more money in the north, so they give it better care. In the South, there's sections of the South that has the origination of the water has issues, but they've also got some serious pipe issues. So there's areas in the south of Armenia that you don't want to drink out of the faucet. You want to boil the water or buy water to drink. I heard it sounded like a cruise ship horn. Yeah, I thought you might. That's what it was. Those motorcycles. It was so freaking loud. I thought the mic would have to pick it up. I didn't think it would be able to stop it. Yeah, it was. God. Usually that's reserved for Saturday night at 11 o'clock for about, I don't know, 6-7 minutes, and then they're done. But it's a weekly thing on a Saturday night. Okay, so it's good news, the water tank, and they've been spending a lot of time going through and replacing the old water pipe systems too. They're going neighborhood by neighborhood. And they've been going pretty quick too. They tear the road up to do it, and so you go in a barrio and you go 2 weeks later, and it's all done, and they've moved on to a different area. That's pretty good because originally I'm from New York, and in upstate New York, something like that, they'd all be standing around staring at it, and it would go on for about 10 years. What the hell? It's you got a mile of work here. How is it you can't finish it? Anyway, well, before I get to the exchange rate, I just found this out just before we came on. This is an RIP moment. Oh, all right. Be right back. This is going to be a weekly thing. All right. Bear with me. I'll be right back. Okay. That wasn't too bad, right? I'm getting good at it. Every week this happens, and every week I say, okay, I'm going to get with Rumble and find out what's going on. And then I forget. All right. Just saw this morning just before I went on. Anybody know who that is? Well, you've probably seen the news by now. This is Bridget Bardot. She was 91 years old and died today. And the thing with Bridget Bardot is, without being disgusting or graphic, but when we're young, we focus in on somebody to be excited about. And this was the very first female ever. I was probably 10, 12 years old, that whenever I would see anything about her, and there were movies out around that time, I just thought, oh my God, she's just like the perfect woman. And in my life, and it's funny because I quick went back and looked and I said, why? But there's only been a few like that. And so the next era was Goldie Hawn. I go back and look at pictures of Goldie Hawn and I go, what happened? So there was Goldie Hawn. Then there was Meg Ryan. I thought she was just the hottest thing for a while. And she was definitely cute. And then the last one was Jessica Alba. Dark, what was it? There was a TV show, Dark something or other, that era. And I just thought she was the most beautiful, hot chick in the world. But my very first, my first was Bridget Bardot. And it's very sad that, for me, it was very sad to see that she's gone. But to be perfectly honest with you, I didn't even know she was still alive, because when I was 10, 12 years old, somewhere around that, I don't remember what it was, she was already headed past her prime as far as being a young starlet in movies and things like that. Okay. One of the first sex symbols, the first for me, the absolute first for me. Oh, okay. I can't even describe. Guys, there's something about all of a sudden it stirs up all your hormones and stuff. You see a whole bunch of different females and it's like, yeah, well, they're pretty or whatever. But then you'll see one that for some reason it pushes some button. And then all of a sudden you're all riled up. I mean, not like jumping around or anything, but anyway. So she was my first. All right. It's probably inappropriate, but so the exchange rate. This chart doesn't look so good, does it? That's this year. But if I were to expand this chart, and I did, and I must have accidentally deleted it because it's not on the screen, you would see that that high point, it had been quite low just before it. Okay. So, and it's 37.16 as of this morning. So it dropped like a Raquel Welch. Yeah, yeah. Well, she should have been for me, but it was really those four. At least those are the ones I can remember. And Raquel Welch, she was awesome. She was definitely awesome, but she didn't hit the top tier. She wasn't the super tier. Okay. Okay. Yeah, let's see. Did I? Okay. Okay. Let's make sure I'm not missing something. All right. So let's get on with the exchange rates. So I'm going to start with the US because that's kind of the anchor. When it comes to the exchange rate here for us, it's a combination of US economy and Colombian economy and things that relate to it. So the latest US data was genuinely very strong. The GDP came in higher than expected. The job report matters even more than the headline number. 100% of the new jobs were private sector jobs. That like never happens. Usually they come out. So there were fewer jobs, but they were all completely 100% private sector. And that tells markets that it wasn't a government padding to get good numbers or temporary hires. It was real economic activity. So that signals a resilient US economy, less urgency for rate cuts, and structurally a stronger dollar. Now, for anyone living in Colombia on US income like me, that would normally be good news. So here's why the peso moved the wrong way anyway. A strong dollar means better exchange rate normally. But the recent Colombian peso strength, it wasn't driven by your normal fundamentals. It was driven by end of year trading conditions. And I went back over time and looked at that, and it's not an unusual thing. December markets are very thin to begin with. You don't have a lot of volume trading. Large players for end of year will close out their positions, take their profits, balance their books, getting ready for the next year. When liquidity is low, small flows create exaggerated moves. And that's what you've been seeing. On top of that, there's speculation because of this emergency declaration, possible EVA increase, the sales tax, the EVA, value added tax is what it really is. Markets don't care whether people like EVA or whether it hurts. They care that it raises revenue quickly and improves fiscal optics. That can attract short-term capital and temporarily support the peso, even if it hurts us. They don't care. So what you're seeing is not confidence in Colombia's long-term outlook. It's technical flows, holiday distortion, and fiscal speculation. Now, the key question is it going to last? Nearest I can tell, I don't have a crystal ball. I just spend time trying to figure it out. Take it for what it's worth, but probably not. As normal trading volumes return early January, fundamentals tend to reinsert themselves, the things that count. Fundamentals are things like we still have a strong U.S. economy, higher for longer U.S. rates, ongoing fiscal and political uncertainty here in Colombia. The combination favors either a moderation or reversal of that peso strength. Peso strong, bad for us. Dollar strong, great for us. So when might you see a stabilization and at the very least get back to 3,800, if not more? Well, unless there's some shock event, the most realistic is early to mid-January. In other words, fairly soon. We want to have that year-end positioning clear, real liquidity return, and the EVA discussions either stall or at the very least become clearer. It's up in the air. So in other words, not tomorrow, but soon enough, this move is going to be treated as temporary, and it's not the new normal. So the U.S. economy is doing the heavy lifting for expats right now. The peso's recent strength is technical, not structural, and the 3,800 area is still very much in play once we get into 2026. Okay, any questions? I'm partial to brunettes. I am too, actually. And 3 out of the 4 of the ones that I named were blondes. I know, but I'm partial to brunettes. Very much so, as a matter of fact. Okay, before we get into our main topic, any questions, comment on what I just said? Anybody think I'm crazy? I mean, you're welcome to say I'm full of it, and you disagree. Okay, let's get to the nitty gritty today. I'll have to run off to the Bills game. That's at 4:30.
Guess what's hot and happening now? Straight from the source, we show you how. Brewing bowl, let's break it down. The main topic starts right now. Ow.
The theme song. All right. So, what do we call this? The biggest mistakes new expats make in Colombia, or was it the 10? Whatever. Anyway, today we're going to talk about something that comes up over and over again. And I don't care how smart, experienced, or well-traveled you are. Most problems expats run into in Colombia are not caused by Colombia. They're caused by expectations. And the tricky part is they don't hit you all at once. They sneak up on you. So I'm going to walk you through the biggest mistakes I see people make. I made some of them myself. I'll try not to be very judgmental, like, hey, you dumbass. No, but I want this to be useful. So let's look at the first one. Treating Colombia like it's a cheaper version of home. This is a big one. People arrive thinking this is just like home, but cheaper. And that assumption quietly poisons everything. Colombia is not a discounted version of the US or Canada or Europe. It's a different system built on a different culture with different assumptions. When you expect things to work the way they should, air quotes, instead of the way they actually do, you stay frustrated. And that frustration turns into resentment. Or next thing you know, you might move off to Panama. Sorry, Mike. The people who do well here stop comparing. They observe first. There's also a lack of understanding of the scales of the economy. The economy of Colombia, in a lot of ways, mirrors the US, except the US is 4 times larger. So you look at something here like, the minimum wage here, it's so low. But if you multiply that minimum wage times 4, you'll have it fairly close to what it would be in the US. So it's a factor of 3 or 5, depending on what it is, but typically a factor of 4. So just looking at the peso and comparing it directly to the dollar, it doesn't work anyway because they're different. Okay, next one, second one. Confusing friendly with predictable. Colombians are warm, they're helpful, they're polite. I mean, it's one of the first things you notice, but it doesn't mean things are rigid or transactional. A yes might mean, yes, I heard you, or yes, I'll try, or yes, I don't want to say no. That's a big one. It doesn't always mean this will happen exactly the way you expect. And here, culturally, it's not dishonesty, It's the logic that they use. If you expect precision, where the culture here values harmony, you're constantly going to feel misled. It's ingrained in us that yes is yes and no is no, and we're more direct. They're not like that here. The words have less meaning than the way words are used. They are not direct. They don't want to hurt somebody's feelings. It's all about keeping everybody happy. And it's not like they sit and just lie, but in their conversation, they're going to, like I just said, yes, it can mean different things depending on how they view it. And so it's not lie, it's truth from the way they're viewing it. And so you have to learn how that works. Once you figure it out, everything's clear and you won't have a problem with it. Hold on. Turtle. The US dollar has lost value against the Colombian peso in 2025, around 3,700, primarily due to global weakening of the dollar from the US. Yeah, but maybe you weren't paying attention. That was through the year. But the dollar has been strengthening, noticeably strengthening this last quarter. And I explained the two things that made a big difference. I mean, the GDP I'm not going to go back over it. So it had leveled off, but then it dropped again. It had been down there, but then it had gone back up and it was hovering in the 3,800s. But then over the course of a week or week and a half, it just seemed to plummet. And that's what I was referring to. And when we get into the beginning of January, those particular unique end of year things will be gone and we'll go back up to the 3,800 where we were. Over the course of the year, it had dropped down from 4,000 or something. We're all aware of that. I was talking about this past week because people were kind of freaking out and there was a particular reason it happened. And so I was putting it in context. So I appreciate that you asked Grok the opinion, and Grok's right, except you left off, why did it drop again in January or in December, which is what I was addressing. Okay, so where was I? Number 3, moving too fast. People land and immediately want to lock everything in. They want to grab an apartment, move into their neighborhood, get furniture, long-term commitments. But that's the honeymoon phase talking. That's assuming a lot of things. Your brain is flooded with the novelty and relief of finally getting here. And so you think because you've done a lot of homework that you figured it out, except you haven't. And Colombia rewards patience. Rent short term your first month. Relax. Take your time. Take your time in choosing. Check out different barrios. If you're interested in a place, find an Airbnb and stay a night near where where you want to live. I won't go through all those tactics now, but you need to be confident because you're going to be stuck there in a contract for at least a year. So watch, listen, let the barrio kind of introduce itself to you. Okay, number 4, ignoring regional differences. There is no single Colombia. Bogota is not Medellin. Medellin is not the coffee region. The coast it's in its own world. Ask Afro Guajira. People get into trouble when they try to apply one city's logic everywhere else. You'll see that where somebody gets fed up with issues in Medellin, the crime's been building, whatever, and they'll come visit here and they assume that it's going to be the same here. And it's not. It'll be very different. As a matter of fact, even the language is very often it's different. Regional culture matters more than national politics. And once you understand that, a lot of confusion disappears. Turtle, I can't read that now. I really want to get through this, and I appreciate you want to address it. I'll look at it when I'm done here. But, um, you know, all you got to do is open up a channel and do that. I tried to get you to put one of these on. People would be interested in your point of view on things. But I spent, you just asked Rock, I spent about a week getting the information, putting together what it was I presented. I'm pretty confident what I said. Okay, misreading the cost of living. Yes, rent can be cheap. Yes, food can be cheap, but life isn't just rent and groceries. You've got various services, repairs, convenience, travel, eating out, and that's where people tend to get surprised. Like you might go to a restaurant, like you go to the United States and be kind of shocked at how expensive it is. And then there's the exchange rate, which we're talking about. That alone can change your lifestyle without warning. You can be coasting along at a certain rate, and you've built your life into what that exchange rate is. And then if the bottom drops out of it and you lose 300 pesos per dollar, all of a sudden you might be getting a pinch. So that can change your lifestyle without warning. So cheap doesn't mean stable. So you have to plan for those things. Talk to other people, be realistic about it. Okay, number 6 mistake, oversharing personal information. This one makes people uncomfortable, but it matters. You don't need to tell everyone where your money comes from, or how much you have, or what your routine is. Colombia is relationship based, and trust is earned slowly. Oversharing isn't openness here, it's stupidity. So be careful with that. When you do things like that from a Colombian's point of view, you're setting yourself up for a target. And if you have anybody who would remotely be willing to take care of it, you've signaled them, it might as well be them that takes advantage than someone else. So it's kind of like in the US, there's that saying about don't leave your wallet on the seat of an unlocked car because you're inviting theft. Oversharing can invite bad things from good people. So just keep things to yourself as far as particularly finances. Okay, number 7. Anything that's imported is very expensive compared to other things that are available in Colombia. Yes and no, depends. Some things are not, but you're right that some things have a tax. They always have. It's actually come down in the last few years. Anyway, number 7, not learning enough Spanish to be dangerous. Now, you don't have to come here and have it right away, but you do want to keep improving it. So you certainly don't need perfect Spanish. But if you rely on translators forever, you're giving up control. And you miss the tone of people. Now, even if you don't have a strong grasp of the language, just being around people, you'll begin to pick up tone or hesitation or intent from people. But the better you get at the language, the easier those things are to detect. And when you have a culture that tends to dance around things, they're more interested in getting along. Those little signals like the tone or what their intent actually is are pretty important. It's not just the words. So even imperfect Spanish gives you agency, and agency makes a difference. Number 8. I swear when I'm done with this, I will go over the chats. And you're welcome to use the chat. I don't want to chase anybody away. Turtle, I wasn't scolding you. It's just I wanted to answer, but I got this, and it's like Anyway, number 8, expecting institutions to work like institutions back home. Rules exist here, but they're applied through people. And it's not really corruption, it's reality. If you fight the system, it will exhaust you. Because the minute you fight the system, whoever it is you're fighting against is going to dig in. You view it as you're fighting the rule. They view it as a personal assault. And they will do what they can to make your life miserable in retaliation. That's a South America thing. That's just not a Colombian thing. That's a cultural thing. So don't fight the system. You want to be as nice as possible, even for things that are ridiculous, because you're talking to the person. You're not talking to the rule that you're upset with. And it will exhaust you. If you learn how it actually functions, your life will get a lot easier. Number 9, confusing headlines with personal safety. This is a big one. This is what I tend to throttle certain news headlines that I used to mention once in a while, because I would get a bunch of messages where people would only hear part of what I was saying. They would grasp at the part that sounds like, oh, we got increased dangers going on in the coffee region, which is not the case. We have increased protection going on. But Colombia lives in the headlines, and most of those headlines have nothing to do with your daily life here. People who panic over the news make bad decisions. People who understand local reality can live calmly. Number 10, I think this is the last one. I think I did 10. Not building a small, reliable human network. As antisocial as I might be, it's the first thing I do when I move somewhere. It's what I did in Ecuador. I did it here. You may not want to socialize a lot, but you're going to need help. You're going to need to rely on people. And the sooner you build that network, the sooner you can build some trust and you got some backup. You don't need a huge circle. You just need a few people who know you, recognize you, maybe understand, maybe even care a little bit about you. Colombia runs on human connections. If you ignore that, everything feels harder than it needs to be. So, Colombia doesn't punish arrogance, it exhausts it. The people who thrive here aren't the bravest or the richest, they're the ones who adapt. If you understand that, Colombia becomes not just livable, but enjoyable. It's like, don't fight the power. And that's the difference between visiting and actually belonging. Okay, here we go. What'd you think? How'd I do? Did I hit them all? Did I miss anything? I started off and it was like, I think the first 5 or 6 real quick. Then I had to sit and think for a while to come up with more. All right, what do we got here? Policies uncertain, tariffs, inflation spikes, Federal Reserve rate adjustments, reduced dollar demand. Secondary factors include Colombia's stable oil exports, record remittances. Yeah, all that stuff comes into play. But one thing you have to do I do a lot of my research with one of the AIs. I no longer just use ChatGPT. I'll use Claude. I use Gemini. Grok is probably the weakest of them, just so you know. It's easiest to use and certainly the most conversational, but it take it from somebody who's been doing this for quite a while now. It's the absolute weakest when it comes for information. So try Claude. They've got a free one now, or Gemini 3. It's pretty good. I'd say Cloud is probably the best. ChatGPT is second. Gemini 3 is third, and Grok is behind. I expect it'll probably catch up pretty soon, but right now it's not there. But you cannot rely on AI to give you the truth of the facts. You have to learn how it operates, and you have to teach it. For example, if I were to just ask about the exchange rate, it would give me all the information that was true up until December. You would have to point out to it, take into account the latest GDP numbers, and take into account the employment figures where it's 100% private, no government. Take those things into account because they just occurred in the last week or so, and it won't know that. And there's also two modes with the AI. One is when you ask, it'll initially come back with its information. The second one is you have to have it do a deep search. You specifically have to tell it to do a deep search. And when you do that, if there's anything that you want to understand, for example, the GDP had just come out when I was looking at this. And so I threw that in because it wouldn't have that in its cursory search. And I know that. So in the I would tell it, do a deep search and include that. So you have to be understanding of how it actually functions, or you'll get back information that you'll trip over. It took me quite a while to figure it out because I'm stubborn. I didn't want to watch any how-to videos or whatever. Once you figure it out, it becomes somewhat reliable. It's not 100%. The reason I'm using 4 different ones is because if it's anything important, I bounce it off all of them. And then I compare the information. And you will see there's always going to be things lacking in each one of them. And so you kind of put it all together and you find out what's true, and then you can get a complete answer. It's sad that it's that way, but it will probably change. Sometime 2026, probably before June, ChatGPT is coming out with 6.0. And that's going to be a game changer because of long-term memory. I don't want to get into get off what we're here for, but it's that and any of others that do the same thing. Right now, AI is not limited on its abilities; it's limited on the structural framework, the buildings, the number of chips that it can run through, how much power is available. And Elon Musk is probably going to jump ahead because he's building this massive facility, larger than anybody else out there. And so once they have that physical muscle, he'll be able to kind of let it loose. And right now they're in cages because they're limited on resources. And so in order to get things done, you have to do it in chunks and you have to feed it a certain amount of information. You cannot just ask it and expect a reliable answer back. It'll be full of holes. So hopefully that helps somebody because it's becoming more and more useful, but it's a trap that you figure out pretty quick. But there's ways around it. Okay, Tommy, waiting for certain things is just to be expected. Well, but I've seen a lot of people that come and get frustrated and angry about how screwed up it is and how it should be a certain way. And it's like, no, it shouldn't. It should be whatever they decide it's going to be. And you have to understand, a ton of Colombians have been to the United States, have family members that live there. They understand the perspective of how things operate. They know what it's like. Somebody knows, a fair number of people know how returns, because that was a question last time, how returns operate, how businesses operate, how the government operates there. They understand, but they come back here and prefer that it's more comfortable for them because it fits their culture the way they're doing things here. Now you see some things change as they go along there. I will say that a lot of the processes of the government have become pretty efficient compared to what it was some years ago. And so that's a huge plus. But they want to retain their cultural identity, and that whole cultural thing about not being so direct and having relationships matter more than being efficient. They that it's what makes Colombia Colombia. It's why people are so nice and friendly and stuff. So, it's like, be careful what you wish for. If the culture changes and it becomes like that, then you're going to have a whole bunch of Karens. It is built in to people. They will wait in line with no thought of it could or should be different. Yeah, people like their lines here too. I'm not a fan of it, but if there's a line and I have to be there, I just shut up and take it, because what else are you going to do? Get upset at who? With who? And I'll say this too. People will come here and they say, well, it's obvious that they should be doing something, a different process. It'd be more efficient. And I can see what they're talking. I can look and I say, okay, yeah, that's true. But I made my money in the United States going to businesses, pointing out obvious deficiencies, inefficiency that they didn't see. They can own a bit. There was one business, family owned, third generation. They had 12 different family members working, and they only had 2 or 3 non-family members in this operation. It was like almost all family. And like I say, third generation. But they had gotten to the point where every month they were scrambling to try to make payroll. And it was a thriving business. And, things tend to degrade. And they couldn't figure it out. And so they wrote to me a few times. And finally, they hired me to go there. I walked in, and in the first hour, I knew where the problems were. I didn't know the details of it, but I knew right away where the holdups were, where the problems were. People that were in positions that didn't belong in, but they did belong in something. I need to swap people for their talents. The way their flow was going, without all the detail, I saw it right away. Because 1, it's what I do, but 2, is a fresh set of eyes. And so the good news is, after a total of a week, completely restructured, their first month of me gone, they had a bump in profit of 15%. But after that, they didn't look back. They doubled their profit the month after. And so they were very happy because a few thousand that they paid me, they got back right away. So it's not like the U.S. doesn't have. I mean, I made my living going around doing that because people were doing things screwed up, not intentionally, but they're doing it screwed up. So, come here to expect that you're not going to see some business doing things screwed up, even by Colombian standards. It's ridiculous. So it's like there's no point in getting mad at them. It's like they're not going to know what you're talking about anyway because they're in it. They're blind to it. And so you got to have more patience. You got to be a little more forgiving. You got to be less judgmental. Miss Becky, I personally prefer the laid back system. I enjoy sitting and taking my time. Rushing causes mistakes. It's hard for a lot of us. It was difficult for me. I was one of those people that didn't take vacations. And even when I had time off, I was at work. I worked 2 or 3 jobs. I mean, like a real job, but then I would do side things on my own. because I only slept like 4 hours a day. That went on for years like that. And so I always wanted to, I always had projects. I had I owned businesses. I also, at night, I had a website business. I had over 4,000 clients doing that. And then on Saturdays, I had a radio show for 5 years, all in the same time frame. So I was always driven. And there's a lot of advantages to that. But I didn't know how to relax. And he came here, and that was my biggest adjustment. Well, when I got to Ecuador, was to learning what to do with myself. And so, yeah, it's just very different. And a lot of people are driven similar to how I was driven. And it's a difficult adjustment. But I can tell you, it's a good one. It's a healthy one. And once you do adjust to it, you will really appreciate it. I wouldn't go back to what I was doing for anything. You can say, yeah, well, you're doing a coffee thing and you're doing the show and writing books. Well, yeah, I mean, I can't give, however, I do it at my own pace, at my own time. And if I can't do something, it doesn't eat me up. I just do what I can do. And so it's a whole different mindset. I don't carry, as much as I do, I don't carry any stress over it. So it's different. Miss Olga, how you doing? What do you suppose the worst case scenario would be for the dollar peso exchange rate? Well, no, here's the thing. It can go in all kinds of directions. Worst case, go back to what it was 6-7 years ago to 2,800 maybe. I mean, it's possible. Anything's possible. It tends not to be that volatile. And even when there's volatility, we're not talking huge amounts, although it does add up. So, for example, if with my recent, didn't I just say don't expose your finances? Well, it's just between us, and it's an example. But with my recent bump, which I haven't gotten yet, but with my recent bump at the 4,800 mark, I would have had over 8 million pesos for that month pay. And currently at the 3,700, it's just over 6 million. So that's a 2 million swing. That's the rent on my apartment, which I'm going to move and find one cheap. I'm overpaying, but that's significant money here. That's a lot. That's a big percentage. So it can make a difference. On the other hand, if you're selective in how you're living, you're giving yourself that leeway. Would I plan for 2,800? I probably wouldn't, because the likelihood of that's slim to none. I'd probably plan for potential of earning extra money if it ever came down to it. And I would also probably plan to, like, maybe, let's see, we're at 3,700. It's probably going to go back and hover around 38 in January. So, maybe around 3,200, something like that, is like worst case. I mean, nobody knows for sure, but the signs out of it was surprising, because the economy in the U.S. was just kind of chugging away. It was just kind of throughout the year. It wasn't looking bad, but it wasn't looking great. But this last quarter, looking at the factors like new build, new factory construction, the increased hiring of the employment rate of 100% private versus being hired by government was actually high. Now, the overall figure, it was low. So when the number came out, the first impact was, oh, that jobs report wasn't that great, until you actually looked what it said. And I was like, Holy moly, that's good. Um, the average wage income, I forget the numbers off the top of my head, but you can find it all for the last quarter. Was a pretty significant increase. In other words, businesses are paying more to hire, skilled people. It was over $1,000, and that's pretty good. So all these different factors means that we're going into 2026 on a trend of stronger dollar, stronger dollar, stronger dollar. You even have people in the Fed that are basically left leaning, that kind of hate Trump. There's two of them that came out and made public announcements that they didn't realize that the economy was, they were mistake. They came out separately in press conferences. You can find them on YouTube. They came out separately saying they didn't realize what they had predicted. It's not going that way. It's much better than they expected, and that their opinion on rates has changed. Well, that's a bitter pill for them to swallow, seeing how they're kind of like anti-Trump people, and for them to have to come out and admit that what he'd been saying for the past year is actually beginning to come true. You look at the income from tariffs and the fact that inflation, they said, well, the tariffs is just going to blow inflation out of the water. Well, inflation didn't go up, but the income from the tariffs did. So all of the things that were planned out, it's actually coming to fruition. And all of that means 2026 is every indication the dollar is just going to get stronger. We've been living on the changes in Colombia and the weakness of the dollar for the last few years, but now it's kind of swinging the other way. So I'm pretty optimistic as we get into 2026 that it's going to end up in our favor. But again, you never know. All right. Anything else? I mean, I'm going on and on. I've got a bunch of people that are fairly new to a coffee time. Feel free to chime in. This is an interactive show. The only thing is, keep it nice, keep it clean, keep it cordial. We can disagree without calling each other names. I mean, that's our thing here, but feel free to join in. I mean, that's the point of what we're doing here. It's why I do it. If I didn't have this interaction, I wouldn't be doing these coffee times. Okay. Is that it? I hope everybody had a nice Christmas. Mine was very chill. I didn't do Christmas this year, and I quite enjoyed it, actually. The only gift giving I did was I gave Sharik something, and the guards for the building, I gave them an envelope with a little money in it, which is kind of traditional. And that was it. And that was, it's kind of nice. All right. So I guess that's it. And what do I got here? All right. I will consider the Rumble Premium for that 3-part series. If you're concerned at all about what goes on in Colombia, it's pretty good. And what else? That's it. Take a look at my books. Oh, if you have the Kindle Unlimited, which is like Prime, I guess, if you have that, it's actually free. They pay me to put it in that queue, so that was pretty cool. You have to qualify for it, so I just signed up and I got it right away. So if you have Kindle, both of my books are free in that format. Okay, that's it. Owen, go Bills. Absolutely right. I will see you next week. I actually have a couple lives, one on my personal channel planned, probably Tuesday or Wednesday. So maybe I'll see you then, but definitely next coffee time. Ciao. Go Bills.